Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're plunging headfirst into the world of developer tools, specifically looking at a pretty massive overhaul that's making a lot of engineering teams, well, rethink their core workflow.
Yeah, it's generating some buzz.
Definitely. Our sources are detailing the launch of Cursor 2.0. It's a new developer IDE, and it's making what they call a clear bet on agentic editing.
Agentic editing. That's the key phrase right there.
Exactly. So our mission today is really to understand this shift. We seem to be moving away from the editor as just a passive text box.
The fancy typewriter.
Yeah, basically. Towards an editor that's more like a capable partner, something that gets your intent, runs tools, coordinates work for you.
And that contrast is absolutely fundamental here. Most editors we use today, they're file-centric. It's all about the file tree, the tabs you have open.
Right, that's my whole world usually.
But Cursor 2.0, it's designed very deliberately, maybe even opinionatedly, to be task-centric. Think about it like, instead of just sending an email, you're handing a detailed assignment to a chief of staff.
Okay, I like that metaphor.
The IDE isn't just asking which file. It's asking what's the desired outcome here. And that simple change from file to goal, it drives pretty much every feature we're going to talk about.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Agent-centric.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like day to day? Because right now, my IDE feels more like, I don't know, a sophisticated suggestion box. How does it suddenly become a project manager?
Well, the first thing you'll notice is the whole default layout just flips. The file tree, it gets pushed aside.
Really?
Yeah. And the priority view becomes this agent view. And this view shows you the agent's working plans, like its strategy, the runs it's performing, and critically, the resulting diffs the changes it made.
So you see its thought process.
Exactly. The whole thing starts with you stating a goal, like fix this bug or implement this feature, and then the agent kind of takes the wheel for the scoping and the execution part.
Okay.
So for instance, it'll use semantic search to gather context from your code base. And here's a key bit of jargon. It does its editing within an isolated work tree.
Isolated work tree. Hang on. For listeners maybe less deep in Git internals, are we talking about like a clean, temporary branch?
Yeah.
Where AI can just experiment without messing up the main code?
That's precisely it. Think of it as an isolated temporary environment. It's the agent's private sandbox.
Okay.
And this lets it fail, retry, even run potentially, destructive commands like a big automated test suite.
Right.
Using something called a sandbox terminal, all without risking your actual system or the integrity of your main branch. You only approve the final clean output, not the messy behind-the-scenes stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. But if the agent is doing all this complex work, thinking, planning, it needs a pretty powerful brain, right? Which brings us to the headliner feature, I guess. The composer coding model. Now look, every developer already has access to tons of large language models. Why do we need another one, an in-house model from Cursor?
Yeah, good question. Composer is Cursor's own model, and the reason it exists is because it was engineered specifically for speed, decisiveness, and importantly, tool-savvy agentic coding.
Tool-savvy.
Meaning it's good at using other tools as part of its process. The fundamental design constraint was keeping that iteration loop. You give a task, it does work, you review, extremely short and fast.
Oh.
And what's really interesting is how they trained it. It was apparently trained with codebase-wide search and tool usage as like first-class behaviors, not an afterthought.
So it expects to need to search and run things.
Exactly, which makes it intrinsically better, supposedly, at navigating complex code bases, finding the right files, running the necessary commands, and sticking to these multi-step plans it creates. It's purpose-built for those fast agent loops, making it really competitive for just everyday developer tasks.
But what if I'm tackling something really gnarly? A complex refactor, something that needs, like, peak reasoning power. I might want one of the big frontier models, right?
Right.
Like Claude 3 Opus or GPT-4. Does Cursor 2.0 lock me into Composer, or can I swap?
Nope, not at all. And that flexibility is actually a huge strength. Cursor 2.0 is completely model agnostic.
Yeah.
Composer is the default, mainly for that speed. But you can just click a drop-down and switch to those heavier models, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, whatever you prefer right there in the picker. Especially useful for those really hard, complex refactors.
So the IDE gives you the framework, the agent stuff, but you choose the engine based on the job.
Precisely. You pick the right tool for the task's complexity.
Okay. Now let's shift gears to a feature that sounds, well, like a bit of a double-edged sword, maybe? Multi-agent coding.
Ah, yes.
Launching several agents from the same starting point.
Right.
I mean, that sounds like it could just be automated chaos waiting to happen. Why are the sources so confident this is a productivity boost and not just a massive headache?
Yeah, it's probably the most debated feature. The confidence comes from the guardrails they've built in and the mental model they expect you to use.
Okay, it's a model.
Isolation is absolutely non-negotiable. That's the key. You can launch multiple agents, maybe even using different models, from the same starting code commit.
Right.
But crucially, each one explores its plan in its own completely separate work tree, or even on a separate remote machine if you set it up that way.
Oh, okay, so they can't step on each other's toes directly?
Exactly. That isolation is the only thing preventing instant state clashes and that horrible merge conflict stress every developer absolutely dreads.
That makes sense. So the tool enables the parallelism, but the developer still has to provide the governance, the structure, because just running 3 agents at once for diversity, as some might suggest, sounds like 3 times the review work, maybe. How does this actually save time?
It saves time and, importantly, tokens compute costs by preventing runaway expensive executions, especially if you use it smartly. The sources highlight 2 main healthy patterns.
Okay, what are they?
The first one is diversity at the sketch level. Instead of asking 3 agents to write the full commit for a feature.
Which could be huge.
Right. You ask multiple agents to just write short plans or outline the patch sets, like a 5-line sketch of their approach. You quickly review those outlines, pick the best strategy, and then you have just one agent execute the full implementation.
Ah, okay. So you leverage their different ideas early, but only pay for one full execution.
Exactly. Saves tokens, saves time. The second healthy pattern is separation of concerns. This is where you run agents in parallel that, by design are going to touch different parts of the system.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, maybe you have one agent writing documentation in the Markdown files. A second agent is fixing a bug specifically in the test suite files. And a third agent is updating, say, linter rules in configuration files.
Gotcha. Different territories.
Right. Since their scopes are cleanly separated, they can run safely in parallel without interfering with each other's core code changes.
So what you're saying is, the tool gives you the power, the sandboxes.
Mm-hmm.
But if the developer doesn't define that scope near perfectly, they've basically just automated creating merge conflicts or redundant work.
That's a good way to put it. Isolation is enabled by the tool, but clear scope definition is absolutely mandatory from the user. You provide the rules, the tool provides the mechanism.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, let's move to the inevitable head-to-head comparison. For a lot of developers, the question is probably pretty simple. Is my current setup, usually VS Code plus GitHub Copilot, good enough? What are the key, practical differences that might make someone actually switch to Cursor 2.0?
I think the biggest difference boils down to architectural philosophy. VS Code is a fantastic general-purpose IDE, right? And Copilot is an incredibly powerful assisting extension within it.
Mm-hmm.
Cursor 2.0, on the other hand, is being built from the ground up as an agent-centric IDE. It's designed specifically to support these multi-step, plan-driven, tool-using workflows we've been talking about.
So features like those isolated work trees and the multi-agent stuff, they're native, not bolted on.
Exactly. They're core parts of the IDE, which theoretically reduces the amount of orchestration and mental overhead for the developer trying to manage these complex agent tasks.
Okay. And you mentioned model access earlier, too.
Right. That's another difference. Copilot is pretty tightly integrated with Microsoft and OpenAI models for obvious reasons. Cursor 2.0 gives you that model picker. You can use their fast composer model or easily swap to Claude or GPT-4 or Gemini, depending on what you need for that specific task. More choice.
And thinking about the end of that agent task, say an agent has finished a complex job, maybe it touched 5 or 6 different files. How much easier is the review process compared to, manually checking diffs across multiple files or wading through a big, messy pull request?
Yeah, that's where their unified multi-file diff and plan review feature is supposed to really shine.
How does that work?
It presents the agent's entire process, the initial plan it made, the tools it used along the way, and the resulting changes across all affected files as one single coherent view.
Oh, okay. All in one place.
Right. The goal is to make that final approval step much faster and, importantly, give you more confidence that the agent actually followed its own logic and did what you expected across the board.
Okay, that sounds genuinely useful. Moving to team features then. Beyond just the individual agent workflow, what are maybe the top 3 things that stand out for professional teams? Teams focused on, say, trust, speed, and repeatability across developers.
Yeah. The team features seem geared towards governance and consistency. First one I'd highlight is the integrated browser.
A browser inside the IDE.
Yeah, it runs right there in a pane. This allows agents or the developer to capture DOM snippets, reproduce UI bugs, walk through flows, all without having to jump out of the editor into Chrome or Firefox.
Okay, so a tighter feedback loop, especially for front-end stuff?
Exactly. Much faster iteration on UI fixes. Second big one is those sandbox terminals we touched on earlier.
Like the safety aspect.
This really addresses trust in a team environment. They run commands with strict boundaries, significantly lowering the risk of a script, maybe one suggested by an agent, accidentally touching the wrong system parts or having unintended side effects. It's about establishing safer, more predictable defaults when automation is involved.
Makes sense for shared environments. And the third?
The third is team commands. This is all about repeatability and consistency. It lets teams publish shared prompts, agent instructions, and maybe even workflow rules from a central dashboard.
So everyone's using the same playbook?
Essentially, yes. Both the human developers and the AI agents are executing against the same set of guidelines, ensuring consistency in things like code style, testing strategies, or documentation formats across the whole organization. It's a governance layer.
That grounding is helpful. Okay, let's try to make this really concrete. Can you walk us through a common scenario, maybe like fixing a UI bug, using this full Cursor 2.0 workflow?
Sure. Let's imagine there's a broken button on some complex internal dashboard or portal.
Okay, classic problem.
You'd start an agent run. Maybe you give it the URL or the route where the bug occurs. The agent then opens the integrated browser right there in your IDE. It navigates the user flow to get to the broken button, maybe clicks around, and captures the necessary DOM context of the HTML structure, CSS, maybe nearby elements.
Okay, it sees the problem area.
Right. Then, based on that context and its understanding of the code base from semantic search, it proposes a minimal code patch to fix the button and potentially suggests a corresponding unit test for that fix.
And you review this plan.
Yep. You quickly review the proposed plan and the code snippets. If it looks good, you approve it. The agent then runs the test suite, or at least the relevant tests, in its sandbox terminal to verify the fix immediately.
Okay.
Now, while those tests are running, maybe they take 30 seconds, you could use that separation of concerns idea. You launch a second quick agent run, maybe telling it draft documentation updates for this button fix.
Leveraging the parallel agents.
Exactly. That second agent works in its own separate worktree, just touching the docs files. So when the tests pass and the documentation agent finishes its draft, you're presented with one single unified diff. It contains the code fix, the new test, and the documentation updates, all ready for one final review and commit.
Wow. Okay. So potentially zero switching between my browser, my terminal, my code editor, my documentation tool.
That's the ideal, yeah. A significant reduction in that orchestration, overhead, and context switching.
Okay, that sounds pretty compelling. Now, we've spent a fair bit talking about the shiny future of coding here. Let's bring it back down to earth. Time for the parts that might make users want to throw their coffee mug at the screen. The honest list of rough edges, as the sources put it. What's the biggest shock to muscle memory for developers switching over?
I think the biggest hurdle, based on the feedback, is just familiarity. That agent first default layout, it feels really unfamiliar if you're someone who currently lives in the file tree, you know.
Decades of habit there.
Yeah. Exactly. Your muscle memory is constantly reaching for that familiar navigation structure on the left. And it's relegated. It's a genuine cognitive shift you have to make.
What else?
Also, while the automatic context gathering is powerful, some, let's say, veteran users or power users apparently miss the old explicit context tags. Things like the original @ definitions or @ file commands, which gave them very direct manual control over exactly what context the AI was seeing.
So less direct control sometimes.
Potentially, yeah. The new system is smarter, but maybe less explicit for those who liked the manual levers. And, as we already discussed, those parallel agents. If you don't define the scope properly, they can really tempt developers into just creating noise or wasting compute cycles. It's a power tool, and like any power tool, it demands precision.
Right. Power requires responsibility, but the sources seem to reassure us this isn't like a one-way street. If I really hate that new agent layout, I'm not stuck.
No, absolutely not. And this is important. None of these rough edges are presented as fatal lock-ins. You can apparently switch back to the classic file tree-centric layout instantly with a toggle. And you can still keep your favorite frontier models like Claude or GPT-4 right there in the model picker. The point the sources make is that you have choice. You're not forced into the new agent-first way of working if a particular task, or just your preference, demands the old familiar workflow.
Okay, that's good to know. Flexibility is key.
Yeah.
Let's quickly touch on pricing then, because agent usage tied to different model choices. That sounds like it could get inherently complex to track.
It can be, yeah.
What are the main tiers that someone listening, maybe wanting to just try this out, should know about?
So the structure basically maps your usage credits directly to the underlying model you choose. Running GPT-4 costs more than running Composer, for example.
Makes sense.
There's usually a hobby tier. It's got limited usage, obviously, but it's perfect for just evaluating the tool, seeing if the workflow clicks for you. Then, the sweet spot for most daily individual developers seems to be the Pro tier, usually around $20 a month, give or take. This offers much more extended agent usage, unlimited basic completions, and it's really aimed at folks who want to leverage those fast agent iteration cycles day in, day out.
And for companies?
For larger organizations, there's typically a Teams tier, maybe around $40 per user per month. This adds things like pooled usage credits across the team, usage analytics, and those crucial organizational controls like the team commands feature for ensuring governance and consistency.
Okay, so if we try to connect all this back to the bigger picture, what's the ultimate trade-off a developer or a team is making when they consider moving from their familiar, reliable stack like VS Code plus Copilot to this new agent-centric IDE?
I think the trade-off is essentially orchestration friction versus learning curve and maybe some control. Cursor 2.0 seems to be positioning itself as the most coherent, integrated agent environment available today. It really rewards developers who can provide clear goals and who cultivate clean work habits, like good coding.
So it encourages good practice.
It seems designed to, yes. It particularly shines, according to the sources, when your specific workflow can really benefit from that tight integration, using the integrated browser frequently, needing the safety of the sandbox terminal, or leveraging that sophisticated planning and multi-agent harness. It's an investment, perhaps, in getting a cleaner, higher quality, better tested diff at the end.
But the final, very pragmatic observation from the sources seems to be maybe you don't have to choose one side definitively.
Exactly. The practical advice seems to be keep both VS Code or your current IDE and Cursor 2.0 installed, at least for now.
Use the right tool for the job.
Precisely. Use Cursor 2.0 when you're doing tasks that really play to its strength, exploring a large, unfamiliar repository, writing lots of test cases, doing complex refactoring, or running those multi-step agent-driven tasks. But maybe stick with your familiar VS Code plus Copilot setup when you just want that comfortable, fast, single-assistant experience for simpler edits. It's a choice based on the task, not necessarily a permanent switch in religion.
That feels like sound advice.
Yeah.
Okay, so this whole shift really does move us past just simple autocomplete, doesn't it? It's heading towards genuine collaboration with the machine. The call to action seems pretty simple then. If you're intrigued, run a real task, something from your actual backlog in your own repo using Cursor 2.0, and just see how it changes your speed, your workflow, and maybe the quality of the final diff.
Yeah, that's the ultimate metric for any developer tool, isn't it? Does the work actually feel lighter or produce a better result? You have to try it on your own problems.
Absolutely. And finally, maybe a provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on as we wrap up. If this new generation of power tools like Cursor 2.0 truly rewards developers who provide crystal clear, precise goals, how might really focusing on defining those goals more precisely up front change the way we structure our entire work sprint or even our project planning long before we even touch the IDE?
Interesting question. Thinking about the thinking.
Definitely something to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.